Grace and peace to you. I'm Nancy Benson Nicole, pastor at Fourth Presbyterian Church, Chicago, and this is Rhythm and Word, a weekly video devotional. And for the next few weeks, I am pleased to explore with you what I consider to be my spiritual bookmarks. And those are experiences or people who have been foundational to me as touch points, both as a pastor in my profession and in my own personal faith journey. Those pages within the book of my life, if you will, that I always turn back to as being meaningful and shaping either who I am or how I do what I do. My colleagues in weeks past have shared books that have been formational for them. And I had considered identifying one of the number of books on my shelves that inspire me as well. And as I was doing that, I stumbled upon a journal from about a decade ago where I was reminded of a conversation I had with a colleague who had lifted up the concept of bookmarks in our lives, those institutions or experiences that are key to who we are and so important to our lives. And at the time, she had argued that, as we get older, there are less and less of these that stand as markers in our lives, and that if we continue to turn to these formational bookmarks, if you will, to inform who we are in the present, then we ought to continue to connect either through giving to those institutions, or I would extend to say remembering and appreciating those institutions or people that continue to speak to us. And so that's what I seek to do through these devotionals, is to steward these experiences. I've been privileged to be able to say that there are many people, many experiences, many institutions that inspire me, but we'll consider just a few. And today, I want to tell you about an inspiration, a spiritual bookmark, if you will, brought to me by a guy named Tom. And through Tom, I learned the beauty and the wonder and the magic of looking at what is ordinary in our lives and turning it into something extraordinary. Tom Walden, who came into my life for a season. Some people come to us for a lifetime, and some people come into our lives for a season, and Tom was that person. I'd met him back in the summer of 2022 when I was serving for 3 weeks as a camp chaplain at a camp called Westminster on Higgins Lake up in an area of northern Michigan called Roscommon. Now, Tom was different from the array of camp counselors who were usually young college students. I would put Tom in his early 30s, and he was a sprightly guy, couldn't be any taller than 5'6", and probably weighed 140 pounds, maybe soaking wet. And Tom had been an institution as the director of camp counselors for several years. He had kind of a prickly disposition. He was the one that was the swift disciplinarian in his deep Southern drawl, or sharp Southern drawl, I should say, inflected by Floridian. You wouldn't know it necessarily to first meet him or to hear the shrill tone of his voice instructing a camper to get out of the water without your floaties on. I'm gonna put you in the desert. If you don't get your floaties on, you'll never see water again. Or some other way that he would chastise or discipline a student. You'd never know on the face of it that he had this rich, childlike imagination, or that he worked as a character at Disney World, embodying various different identities and possibilities, and that would also inform another aspect of his leadership at the camp. Because any type of ordinary experience of a campfire couldn't just be a campfire. It had to be something like a chocolate factory with a fondue fountain where kids could put marshmallow on a stick and roast it, and not just smash it with a Hershey bar, but dunk it in a chocolate fondue. Or imagining that we were in the wilderness, crossing the desert couldn't just be the desert. It would have to be importing whole bunches of sand and creating sandboxes for kids to be able to make a giant lion like Daniel in the Lion's Den or some other creation. It was go big or go home. And I remember one particular evening wandering into the mess hall after hours when all of the campers and everybody else was asleep to get a glass of water. And there was Tom, trying to figure out how he could create Christmas in July. And so Tom and I spent the wee hours of the night putting up a Christmas tree together and decorating the entire mess hall for Christmas in July, so that when the counselors and the camp directors and the kids and everybody woke up the next morning to enjoy breakfast at the mess hall, they were greeted by the wonder and splendor of Christmas in July with not Tom, but Santa Claus, dressed up with fake beard and all, seated at Santa's big chair to take everybody's wishes. Tom had this really unique way of making ordinary experiences extraordinary, transformational, magical opportunities. It gave shape and form to how I would approach crafting lessons in the Bible for students, or how to examine theological truths with props and things that would help ideas and truths come to life. The idea of a mustard seed being told and explored with a little bead, or whatever I had at hand to be able to add a sense of richness to experiences in ministry. Sadly, that season was a short one that I had with Tom, and that would end up being the last summer that he would serve as the director of counselors at Count Westminster. Sadly, and unbeknownst to us until nearly the bitter end, Tom would be carried to his eternal home in the arms of Jesus, dying of cancer that following fall. It was so many years ago that I was introduced to Tom, and he was in my life for only a season. But his imprint as a spiritual bookmark on my life and experience will remain. I thank God for Tom Walden as a spiritual bookmark. And I invite you to think about who in your life might kindle that sense of magic and wonder of finding the extraordinary in the midst of the ordinary. Let that person be a spiritual bookmark in the pages of your own life and journey. May it be a source of spiritual sustenance and support to you as you continue to remember them, especially in these deeply troubling times. We need all the help that we can get. Thanks be to God for Tom, my spiritual blueprint.